Good afternoon and welcome to the final session today for the Global Family Visit Summit 2023. I'm your host, Paul Andrews, and I'm delighted to be hosting the session this afternoon with Guillermo Salazar, currently based in the US, but lots of experience around the world, on a session looking at next generation, the transition and succession, and how to build bridges between generations. Guillermo, welcome.
Thank you, Paul, for an invitation.
Let's start by just telling everyone a little bit more about who you are and what you do and how you've got to where you are today.
Okay, well, my name is Guillermo Salazar. I'm based in Houston, Texas. I'm originally from Venezuela, and I'm an architect. I graduated of architect a long time ago in a different life because I came from a family business, and my family business is all about construction. So it was, it's always being part of the family business means that you are going to do some kind of profession related with. So I went through the architectural career, but then I start to think about managing the business, and that was when I discovered this topic of the family businesses. I didn't start to think, read, write about family business, and eventually I became a family business advisor. So I was trained in family therapy, and but I'm not a psychologist, either a therapist. But I think that they have enough tools to help families and family members to deal with the dynamics and emotions related with managing and owning a family business. So that's what I've been doing the last 20 plus years of my career, all around the globe, especially in the region of Latin America and Spain, also here in the US. Helping families to deal with issues of succession, professionalizations, and developing family councils and family constitutions.
Fantastic. And this afternoon, you're going to talk to us about building bridges between generations, which I know is a topical issue for many family business owners around the world. So let's make a start.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. So when you invite me, Paul, to looking for a topic to start with this, I think that one of the most interesting. You're watching the right panel, right?
You've got your slides and your notes page. You've got both pages on the screen.
Okay, we did it the wrong way, so sorry.
All right.
Okay, here you are now. Sorry. So we were thinking about, when we were proposing the topics, about precisely how to deal with these family issues. And one of the things I think it's important for families to consider is how to deal with the fact that we have different generations and probably common goals. Okay, so how do we do that? How do we create the perfect path to go through the conversations properly and try to find how do we create those bridges that help us to keep on going together on the same goal. So that's why we are going to talk today about building bridges. And it's all about the process. And the process we are going to talk today, it's only 3 steps. It's very simple. And we will start previously to study these steps with the fact that we understand that, of course, all of your audience is very familiar with this model, that the family business is mainly related with family and enterprise or business issues, and also with ownership. But let's focus on family and business. Some of the families that we work with they tend to favor more the business side of the system than the family side. Some other families tend to make decisions on the family side than the business sides. And we have found some very special family businesses that have this equilibrium, this balance in between the two sides. I have to be honest, after all these years, I don't know which one is the best. I've seen everything. And sometimes you will think, no, the best decision is to make decisions based on the business side. It depends. It depends on what you want to do. But here, the big issue is that you have to make the big question. And the big question is, do we want to keep on going together? Because that will help us understand what's the best choice for a family business to make their choices. So every time that they have the opportunity to gather with a potential client, we do the first meeting. This first meeting ends with these questions. Why? Why do you want to keep on going together? And they say yes. Usually 95% of these persons, they say yes, that's why we hire you. We want to hire you because we want to keep on going together. Okay, so if you want to keep together as a family business, we will have to go through this process in order to create this bridge that will help us to communicate. So we will need to improve our communication. We will need then to define the purpose, understand why do we want to go together, and then set the rules. It's the way to keep that path ongoing. So that will help us to build the bridge, and that's what we are going to talk about today. So starting with the first one, improve communication. So that's the first step. And we are assuming that we all communicate and we do it in a very good way, but we have to think that there is a space for improving our communication always, especially in a family business. If we are members of a family business, we have to be experts in communication, because those systems that we belong, those family business systems, and remember the model, are complex systems. And when I talk about complex systems, I'm not talking about complicated systems. I'm talking about it's a system with different elements and interactions that make it complex to deal with. So communication must be very, very accurate if we want to create that bridge. The best way to improve communication is understanding the axioms of human communication. An axiom, it's a fact, it's a reality that cannot be questioned. And one of the persons that was studying these important topics related with the communication was Eric Fromm. He created the theory of human communication, and he found that there are 7 axioms. We are going to see only 3 today. And the first one is that it is impossible not to communicate. That means that if you want to shut your mouth and you want to stop talking to your father because you don't understand him, because you don't know why that he thinks that way, you are sending a message. And the message is very clear. If you want to stop talking, you are saying, I don't want to communicate with you, but that's a message too. So we human beings cannot just cut the communications. We are always related, always communicating. The second axiom is that we communicate with 2 channels of languages, which are the digital language and the analog language. The digital language is the package of information that we send in words via talking or writing. So the person that received the information can see that the objective of the topic that we are talking is related with that kind of information. But there is another part of the human communication, which is the analog language. And this is our body language. If we are in the same room and we are communicating with the other person, we will read another level of information that is related with the body language. And the body language is more powerful than the digital language because the body language never lies. You can send a lie via email and say that, yes, we already have done I have allocated all the selling of the product this week. But maybe this is not true. And if I say it in a room with my brother, he will see that maybe I'm a little bit nervous or I'm touching my nose when I'm saying that kind of things. He will sense, okay, there seems to be something wrong here. So our language, it's always composed by those 2 levels. Here's an example that tries to condense how do we understand as humans beings this concept, including the second and the first action. For example, here we can see a couple. We don't know what's the relationship between them, but those two human beings are communicating. They are not talking to each other. They are not even staring at each other, but they are saying a lot of things. In fact, I would say they are yelling a lot of things. And obviously, our body language always tells a lot more. Even we can say that 80% of the information that we are sending is more related with the analog language. So it is very important for us, if we are part of a family business, to learn to read and trust our body language, because most of the information that we are sending to the rest of the people around us is related with that. And the third axiom is that we are all based on biases and preferences. We as humans, we have our own bias of what our own experience, history, our own narrative have shown us how to perceive the rest of the world. And that has led us to preferences. And here's an example, how does it work? This is a classic of psychology. This is a portrait named My Wife and My Mother-in-Law. In this portrait, the artist has drawn two faces, one of a young lady and one of an old lady. Most of the people can see both, but some people cannot see both. Most people can see, other people can see only one of the faces. So, for example, Paul, what face do you see here? It's an old lady or a young lady?
No, it's an old lady. I only see one face.
Which one do you see?
It's the old one.
The old one, right? This is the mouth.
Yeah.
This is the chin, the nose, and the eye, right? But there is another lady here. There is a young lady that this one is the cheek. This is the nose. She's staring. She's like looking back. This is her neck. Can you see it?
I can see it now. You told me, yeah.
Okay, now you can see it. But how come? I mean, how is it possible that we were looking at the same picture and you were not seeing the same thing that I was seeing? That's the way that we function as human beings. We see what we want to see. We see things that only our eyes can show us, but there is always more information there. So that's the way that we work. And that's based on our preferences. And our preferences have to deal with two dimensions: our personality, more introverted or extroverted, and the perception that we have of the environment, more to feeling or more to thinking. So those four dimensions that create the description of the personality also lead us to a preference of communication. And we have labeled them with colors. So, for example, the people that is introvert and more of a thinking way of understanding the environment, we call them blues. And they prefer the orderly life. They have low predisposition to change. So if you want to communicate with someone that has this preference of personality, you know that you cannot go in with a disorder. You need to make an appointment with this person before talking to them. And you know that wherever you do that goes out of the order will lead you to a bad conversation. So that's the way to better drive your communication with that person. On the other side, we can have a yellow person, which are the optimistic, the artist, the person that are more creative and innovative. Those persons are not order. They hate working alone. And the worst thing that you can do with that person is making them bored. So if you want to communicate with the person, you should have some special attribute that will lead the conversation in a creative way. And in that way, you will have the best of that person. Otherwise, you can really lose the attention because you are not doing the things the way that person would like to know. So if we can label the rest of the family business, the rest of the members of the family business I work with, I will understand what's the preferences that they have to communicate. First, of course, I have to know what's my own preference. I should have to do that introspective of my personality to understand how I do prefer people communicating with me. So that's the other part of improving communication. Once you have this, we will start to create a healthy communication, a better way to express our feelings, a better way to transmit information, focusing on what we want to say. So this is the first part. The second part is to define the purpose. That means why we are doing this, why we have decided to keep on going together. And it all starts with the values. The values of the family business are the words that lead our decision process. So we will find in every system three kinds of values: the practicals, the emotionals, and the ethicals. The emotionals are the ones related with the feelings, and they're very close to the family. Those emotional values related with the pride, the unity, the faith, all of those elements are part of the emotional values. The practical values are related with the ownership, and it's related with education, the good communication, the efficiency, all that help us to deal with the best of our resources. And the ethical values, which we will find the respect for the environment, respect for each other, respect for the people, we will find them in the business side. So combining all of these values, we will see and we will find what are the values that belong to us as a family business. And this belongingness is related with values that we don't want to change, values we would like to preserve. And we also will identify values that we would like to change in order to be a better family business. So usually, every time that we do the exercise to explore and discover those values, we will find that most of the values that family business like to prefer are related with the pride, with the sense of sacrifice in some cases, with the identification with the core business. Those are the things that belong to the family that they don't want to change in time. But there are also values that are related usually with communication, with dialogue, with freedom, and with efficiency, things that we know that there is a space for us to be a better family business. So once we have discovered this value, we will find that these values that we want to preserve are embedded in our history. And that's the most important part of identifying them. Once you can discover the history of your family business and you identify in those critical moments of the history how these values are active, how those moments, those milestones in our history created a pinpoint where we can see, okay, in that moment we decided that because we have those values. That's when we will start to think the way we are is the way that we want to keep, but there are things that we want to change. One of the exercises that we do to rediscover our history is creating a shield, a family shield, and a coat d'arms that we used, for example, for when you are looking for the origin of your name. But it's the same here. So what we do is we try to identify the most important values and create an image that will represent that value. And this is the way to say, okay, we are this. And for example, this is the one that I made with my family a long time ago. And Here, there is this coconut plant, which is very typical from the land that we belong, back in Venezuela. And I made the design of a display of these banners, one for the values of the business and one for the values of the family. And the values of the business are related with the construction industry, with the hard work, and with studying and education. And the values of the family are more related with the love of our homeland, our Catholic faith, and our sense of unity. So those are the descriptions that can tell other people how do we identify ourselves. That's our identity. And we can find that this history is the one that we want to preserve. But also we want this history to keep on going in the future. And this sense of continuity is the one that leads us to the next step of the timeline, which is the future. And in the future, we want something special. The future is something that we can start to create together in something that we call the shared dream. The shared dream is that point in the future where all of our individual interests can coincide in one point. And this is the common goal that we want to reach. And the way to discover that is a creative exercise, an artistic exercise, because it's all in the imagination. It's that dream that everybody's dreaming, and we need something to express that dream. And usually we try to do it via a drawing or a collage or playing with Legos, for example. This kind of exercise here, the family, they say, okay, we want to be the stewards of this wealth, and here's the wealth in the middle. This is the third generation of the family. They are the stewards that they are guarding this wealth from all the evils that are surrounding them, and they belong to a second generation, which is the heirs of the first generation. Here are the ancestors. They recognize all of the values of the family members that have helped them to create this wealth. So this is the way that they are imagining the future and the way that they express. And then we have all of that information and we start to write down our purpose. And this is a template, which is an example. There are many other templates that we can use, but at least we should have all those elements that we've been working with. We can say here, and we put the names of who participated in the shared dream exercise, united by a common history based on the values that we want to safeguard, wish to build a future in which we improve and we put the values we want to work with in order to achieve our shared dream as a family business, which through whatever we do, we create products or services, will bring benefits. What benefits? What's the impact that we are going to do in our society? So something like that will help us to justify why we decided to answer that question of, do we want to keep on going together? And if we've been honest with all of the process, we will find that we are ready now to set the rules. And setting the rules means we have to agree on how to reach that shared dream, because we have decided that we want to go there. But this path that will lead us to that shared dream must to set a rule, because we need to know when we are outside of the path or in the path. So those rules usually have to deal with two issues. The first one is governance. And for governance, we will need the council, define the council. And the council means that depending on the complexity of the system, we will need one or two levels of councils. Which of the duties are we going to respect, and what rights do we have in our relationship with the ownership? And then the council, as I mentioned, it will depend. Some families need only one council. They have a very simple structure. And in one council, you can have the decision of the strategy of the business, or the involvement of the family, or the preparation of the next generation, or investment decision. Everything can be decided, but with the proper agenda. And our suggestion is always that if you are going to be always the same people in the same decision-making process of ownership, business, or family, try to keep a different agenda for every meeting that you are going to create. So you can have only one council, or you can have a family council dealing with the family issues, a board of directors dealing with the strategy of the business, and a owners council or a owners assembly. You can separate them in a more formal way, but by the end of the day, what you need is the proper organ of governance that will be as a forum to decision-making processes that you need. So the other thing are defining the functions that these organs will have, and who is going to be the member of every one of these councils. About the duties, we are going to talk about the ethics of belonging to this business. What are my responsibilities as owner, as a family member, or a business person? And what are the good practices that we are going to apply to these kind of duties? And of course, we're going to talk about the rights. The rights are the resources. What's our relationship with the resources? What do I have the right to do with this? And the other important topic to talk about the right is entrepreneurship, which is always related with family businesses and next generation. How do we deal with the family ideas of new business? How do entrepreneurship will help us to lead the next generation to the level that we are looking for to be a good owner, and those kind of relations. And employment, it's always a classic in the rights that we will have as a family, who is able to go into specific employment policy for every family. So those are typically the things that are related with rights. And the second main issue is succession. And in a set of rules that we can compile all of those rules and create a family constitution, for example, if we're looking to have this all in only one place, we can talk about succession. And succession, we can divide these rules in successions on the ownership, succession on the management, and on the leadership. And setting the base of how are we going to deal with that in the coming years will help us to understand that we are in the right track to that shared dream. And with all of this information compiled in that set of rules, we will have something, as I mentioned before, like a family constitution. You can call it family protocol, family rules, something that will remind us what were the decisions that we took through the whole process. And here, the most important part is that in order to create that bridge, we have to see all of this as a process. And the rules will only remind us what do we have to remember about this process. But the most important part is going through that creation of building those bridges that will help us to better communicate, to understand why do we have this process as a purpose, and we will need to set the rule for that. So that's the process. Is if you think about it, it's very simple, only 3 steps, but they must be done in a proper way if we really want to keep on going together. So those are the lessons that I wanted to share with you and your audience, Paul, and how to deal with building the bridges. If you want to know more about it, there is a book that you can buy in Amazon, and here's the QR if you want to access to that specific URL in Amazon. And I will be more than glad to attend the questions of your audience, Paul. And thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thanks, Guillermo. You make it sound really simple, and we all know that it's far more complicated Oh, complicated than you make it sound. A question that's come in is, how do family members who want to start this process, how can they get the conversation started when there may be no harmony in the family to start with? So how do you start the process when there's actually conflict and disharmony present?
Well, usually start with only one person that would like to raise a hand in a meeting and say, okay, I want to talk about this situation. And depending on the openness of the family, you will lead that interest into a conversation that can lead us to talk with someone that could guide us, an advisor or counselor, someone that could lead us. But sometimes, especially when it comes from a second generation, or when you are not the leader of the family business, trying to raise your hand is not that easy, because by the end of the day, those processes are possible only if the decision makers are involved in those processes. So I also have seen families that are led by people that don't believe in that kind of processes. And it's okay. I mean, there are family business out there that they are perfectly functioning without this kind of helpness. But if this is something that you would like to consider for your family, and you want to take advantage of all of this experience and guidance, you can use it. If you want to do it, but you are not a leader in the family business, but you think that this is important, you can start a campaign of information. For example, there is a book that someone wrote about this. Why don't you take a look of this? This is interesting. We can attend one of the seminars that Family Business United is offering. And it's not that easy. You have to do a guerrilla campaign sometimes, and just show them that maybe you have to consider that person is talking about is read this article, and sooner or later they will say, okay, let's talk to someone. But yeah, sometimes it's not that easy.
It's a good point you make. To be fair, we've all been to conferences and hosted them where you have two generations in a room, and you can see the light bulb moment where they suddenly realize that actually they're not alone. And so for me, a next gen should talk to a peer group and talk to their peers and just see some things that their peer group are doing. And I think you're right. Two generations in a room together, listening to the same thing, they'll hear different things, but it can at least start to broker that conversation, can't it?
Yeah, but yes, we have to be aware. I mean, those kinds of processes that I am proposing here are not for every family. I mean, those are families that really can work with these kind of things. So there are families that maybe need another kind of process or approach or advisor, or I don't know, lawyer. It depends.
Yeah. So another question to come in, which is a really good question actually. So it's a family member that's got a family assembly. There's a family council that governs the family assembly. They have a family retreat every year. It's clearly a larger business, but they wanted to look forward to looking forward. They are looking forward, and how they can continue to build that momentum. And how do you get the next generation involved and want to know more about getting involved with a family council and that governance structure to keep the momentum going forward?
Yeah, well, we go back to the question: what do we want to keep on going together? I mean, do we really want to keep on going together? And sometimes it's easy to answer that question. Sometimes when you are a next generation and you are not involved in all of this stuff of family business, it's hard for you to answer that question. So the best way to do that is working on the common narrative of the family. That's the way that we have found that if you are looking for a next generation that you would like them to be involved, and especially if you want them to be responsible owners in the future, the best thing that you can do is making them fall in love with the business, with the family business. And the only way to love someone is to know him, this person. So it's the same with the business. I only can love what I know. So start telling the story. And this is a beautiful process that we do through this study of the story. The storytelling process it's another thing that we have to talk about. In fact, I do remember that we talk about that, about the hero's journey and how the founder is the hero. That's the process, telling them a story of how your grandfather was the founder of this wealth all of the obstacles that he have to fight through, and how this hero is now a mythological person that you have to understand that he's also a human being, and you also have the opportunity to do the same and that he did, but at the proper scale of the moment of the history. You will find someone that is really engaged and in love with this family business. So that's the best part. If we can work on a narrative that will help them see that they also have a role to play in that history, because there is a continuity that we can bet in the future. So you will have them.
I completely agree. And for me, it's always been about the narrative and the story behind the business that's been the reason that FBU exists. Really, it's the stories behind those businesses and capturing them. And I think for some of the next generation, a way to try and start that conversation and keep it going, if you're trying to engage the younger people, is to actually make sure you do share those stories and capture it. Some of the best family businesses that I've come across, the multi-generational, they've written books, they've captured moments of grandfather or great grandfather on camera and put it into things that capture that moment, because you can't once they're not here, you can't recreate it. So I think it's really important, isn't it, to start that spark and create that spark to help move the agenda forward, and as you say, make them fall in love with the business. You talked about the different personality traits and the red, blue, I think it was red, blue, yellow and green, which I guess in a kind of a smaller family business might be easier to manage. But as a family business grows and goes through the generations and the shareholder base and the family base gets bigger, how hard is that, Guillermo, to manage that and understand that from an advisor's perspective? Walking into a family business boardroom, for example, they're not necessarily on day one going to know who they're in the room with. So it's how do you start to understand and appreciate and get to know the family that you're working with, so you can help them on that journey to defining their purpose?
Well, again, it's not that easy, but if you are willing to do that, you have to be very respectful with the people, because not everyone is willing to be not everyone is willing to show us open as a person. So there's always a first step that you can take on building a relationship that will start with asking their permit. I mean, I would like to better understand you, because I need to see how to better deal with our communication, with our different personalities. And first of all, you have to know yourself. You have to know what are your preferences, what's the personality that defines you, and be aware that we are not perfect and we have to deal with that. But then if you want to know the rest of the people in the room, it must to be always from the respect, and eventually they will give you the opportunity to give you the information that you're looking for. But yes, maybe it's not that easy. It's a matter of time. Sometimes it's a matter of trust and patience too.
It's good advice. And over the years, have you seen any conscious differences in the way that families communicate? I mean, we've just been through a global pandemic. There's lots of uncertainty. Families have become a lot more disparate in terms of where they live and how far apart they are from each other. The communication is okay. We've got digital and more electronic, but are you seeing any trends in the way that families talk about topics and communication to move things forward? And what do you see as the change that might happen going forward?
I think that communication in a family business is all related with the leaders. If the leaders are open, the family will be open. If the leaders are close to communication, it will be hard for the family to get the information that they are looking for. These pandemic years help us to see that those who were open took more advantage of the situation. And this electronic communication really helped them to increase their awareness of the feelings and question of the rest of the family in a way that they were not aware before. But it's all about the values of communication. If you want to communicate, you are going to look for the person, for the moment, for the channel. But if there is a leadership that either doesn't believe in that or take advantage of dealing with the exclusivity of the information, you will see that the style of communication of the family, it's harder to be considered as an open communication than other families.
Mm. And I guess taking it to one more kind of another level, we've talked about how you try and bring the generations together with a shared purpose. How important is it that shared purpose is communicated, embedded into the culture of the business so that everyone's aware of the employees, the staff, the management team, that's embedded into that journey too, because they're on the journey with the family. So how important is that part, Guillermo?
Mm. Well, we always start with the family, I mean, with the owners and future owners. So we understand that this shared dream, it's again, shared dreams is the end of the process of storytelling. And storytelling is based on the values. So this shared dream is connected to the values of the family. So it's all part of the same narrative. If we have this shared dream created by the current owners and future owners, we will see those values reflected in the shared dream. And once we have all that information, we can send that information to the rest of the organization, because we believe that in order to get that future as owners, we need to take care of the business, the environment. We are aware of the impact that we are doing in our society, our philanthropic activities. Everything is connected, but it's all based on the values. So if you have that, it's a good way to send the information that is solid as part of the beliefs of the family to the employees, to other stakeholders, and the rest of the community.
So I guess what I'm hearing, and we've talked about this before, the story and the values are really important because they define everything. The alignment of the purpose is critical to their success as a family and a business because they're aligned. And it's the core of what makes them successful, isn't it? So that story, once it is embedded and shared and everyone's moving together, do you think family businesses then have got a greater chance of success? And do you think that one of the failing points would be that they try and overcomplicate things?
That could be yes, that could happen. I mean, I once had a family that their shared dream was so extensive. They wanted to do so many things. They wanted to be in everywhere in the globe, and that was overwhelming. and while we tried to reconduct the conversation, okay, it's a dream, but let's be honest. Let's try to be a little bit realistic and see if we can adapt the scale of the possibilities to this context. And then yes, we can work in a shared dream that makes sense, that fits with the reality of the resources, and that's something that it's more feasible than something that complicate our life. So if we simplify what we are looking for, but still inspire us to go there, so we can have something that you will really believe that you can reach. Yes, yeah, there is a correlation between what you want to do and what you can do.
Totally. And I guess my last question for you really is, how difficult do you see in daily life when you're working with families? How difficult is it for you to see them build bridges? Is it easier for some families than others just because of the nature of who they are and their purpose?
Yes, it's easier with some families. I would say it's easier when you have three elements in a family. The three elements are generosity, which is something that you need a lot in a transition of especially ownership and leadership. You have to be intelligent, because this is something that have to be well think and well execute, and you need some certain level of expertise in strategic. And the third element is braveness. You really need to be brave to do this, because we are talking about letting go, and letting go is not that easy. So with these three elements, you will find families that will address these issues in a better, I would say, in a better condition than others that will have to deal with the same without that.
And if you could leave one last piece of advice for me, just before we wrap up, Guillermo, if you were walking into a room today and listening to the people listening to you today, what advice would you give them in terms of starting? The first thing they should do if they're a family that are now not sure why they're in business together, what their purpose is, what's the first thing they should go and do?
It's only it. I mean, all is based in honesty. I mean, you have to be honest. You have to be honest with yourself and with your family. If you are with your family because you think that you own them something, or this is your duty, or because otherwise I will be a bad person, then it won't be sustainable. Just be honest. Every family must be honest and have members that are honest if we are going to that shared dream in a sustainable way.
Yeah, you've got to love what you do, haven't you? You've got to love it. If you don't love something, it's really hard to find that spark to do on a daily basis.
Exactly.
Guillermo, as always, it's fascinating talking to you. I have got a copy of your book here, which I have read. It's a great read, and anyone that's interested in listening to more of what you've said in terms of building bridges between generations, simple read, but full of really useful guidance and stuff in that book. So I'd recommend it to anyone. As always, thank you very much for your time. It's great to be able to talk to people all around the world, and you've always been very honest and open and generous with your time and giving back and collaborating. And we really respect you for that. And thank you for your time this afternoon, Guillermo.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Paul, for your invitation, and glad to be here every time you invite.
No, it's nice to speak to you. Thanks, Guillermo.
Bye-bye.